My mom's boyfriend tried to force my adoption on my 17th birthday, insisting I had no choice. Picture this. It's my 17th birthday. My mom's boyfriend, Tobias, clinks a glass, makes a speech, and announces to everyone that I've agreed to let him adopt me. The problem? I never said yes. In fact, he just threatened to kick me out of the house if I didn't agree. That day, my entire life as I knew it exploded. Let me rewind a bit. My parents split when I was 11, and after a year-long divorce, we settled into a pretty standard 50-50 custody arrangement. Monday to Thursday with Mom, then Thursday evening to Monday morning with Dad. It worked. My dad has always been consistent, always there for me. Then came Tobias. Mom started dating him 5 years ago, and he moved in 3 years back. Now, Tobias has his own kids from a previous marriage, a 14-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter, but he only gets them every other weekend. His ex-wife has primary custody because, from what I've pieced together, Tobias had some serious issues with alcohol when his kids were younger, missing parenting time and school events. He's been sober for about 4 years, which is great, but the limited time with his own children seemed to fuel this bizarre need to insert himself into my life. He was always trying to reorganize our custody schedule to make our family time overlap. He wanted us all to do activities together, like some big, happy blended family. I made it crystal clear I wasn't interested. I have a dad. I don't need a replacement. But Tobias just didn't get it. He runs this small contracting business, which mostly means he gets jobs here and there, never anything steady. My mom, a full-time nurse, was clearly paying most of the bills. I'd heard them arguing about money more than once. His excuse for 2 years? Just a slow period. My mom, bless her heart, always believed him. My relationship with Tobias was never good. He tried too hard, always commenting on everything, wanting to know where I was, who I was with, what time I'd be back, even when I was just chilling at my mom's. He acted like he had authority over me, and my mom let him, saying he was just trying to be involved. To me, he was just some guy living in my mom's house who couldn't accept that I already had a dad. The tension finally boiled over around my 17th birthday. For years, my parents had managed to put their differences aside and throw one joint party for me, usually at a park or restaurant. It was always nice the one day a year I didn't feel like I was being split in half. But this year, 6 weeks before my birthday, Mom announced there would be 2 separate parties. I knew instantly it was Tobias's idea. He'd been pushing for more separation between my 2 households since he moved in, and he really didn't like my dad. I tried to talk Mom out of it. I said I preferred one party like always. She wouldn't budge. Tobias has already started planning something special, she insisted. That's when I knew this wasn't about me at all. It was about Tobias playing dad in front of his kids and my mom's family. My dad's party was first, the Saturday before my actual birthday. It was perfect. A barbecue, friends, cousins, music, a fire pit, and my aunt's chocolate cake. Exactly what I wanted. After that, I told my mom I didn't need a second party. I just wanted a quiet dinner with her. She got upset, called me ungrateful, a brat. She said Tobias had put in a lot of effort, and I needed to show up. It wasn't fair. I just didn't want another celebration that was really about him. The second party was the following Saturday. I showed up with my overnight bag, planning to escape after the festivities. Mom and Tobias were in the kitchen, acting strangely, almost too cheerful. Excited. Mom kept asking, "Big surprise." Tobias chirped. The house was already decorated, formal and stiff. Not my vibe at all. An hour before guests arrived, Tobias knocked on my door. He came in, sat on my bed without asking, holding a small, silver-wrapped gift. He said he had something important to discuss. I opened the box. Inside was a generic necklace with a pendant that said family. I mumbled, "Thank you." "There's more," he said. The necklace, he explained, represented something bigger. He wanted to make our family official. He wanted to adopt me. He said he'd been thinking about it for months, that he loved me, like his own daughter, and wanted it to be legal. He even claimed my mom was on board. And then he dropped the bomb. All you need to do is agree, and your dad will have to sign paperwork giving up his parental rights. I just stared. This was insane. My dad has been in my life every single day. He's never missed anything. There was no reason for him to give up his rights, and no reason for Tobias to adopt me. I told him no. I said I wasn't interested. Tobias's whole demeanor changed instantly. His face hardened. He leaned forward. You need to think carefully about this, he said. The house we're sitting in is in his name. If you're not willing to be part of his family, maybe you shouldn't be living there anymore. You can either agree to the adoption, or you can move in with your dad full-time. I knew he was lying about the house. My mom's name was on the lease. I'd seen it. Tobias liked to pretend he was in charge, but he barely contributed. His business was failing, and Mom had been carrying him for months. I didn't say any of that out loud. I just repeated that I wasn't agreeing to anything. He stood up. You have until the end of the party to decide. Then he left. I sat there, clutching that stupid necklace. I wanted to run, but I had no way to call my dad without them noticing. About 10 minutes later, Mom walked in. Did Tobias talk to you? She asked. Yes. What do you think? I think it's a terrible idea. She sighed. You're being difficult, she said. Tobias just wants to feel like a real father to you. It would mean a lot to him if you considered it. I told her again. I already had a father. She didn't argue, but she also didn't leave my room. She just stayed, folding clothes, basically making sure I couldn't slip out before the guests arrived. The party started around 4 p.m., and what a guest list it was. None of my friends were there. It was Tobias's kids, a few neighbors I barely knew, and relatives from my mom's side who don't like my dad. The ones who stopped talking to him after the divorce, who were always cold to me when I mentioned him. My mom had specifically invited the anti-dad brigade. She had set up an environment where nobody would question Tobias trying to replace my father. I went through the motions. Ate cake, opened presents, smiled, all while planning my escape. I figured I'd wait until things wound down, grab my bag, and call Dad. Then Tobias stood up to make a speech. He clinked his glass. He started talking about how proud he was to be part of my life, how he'd watched me grow. It was all a lie. He'd only known me for 5 years, and I'd spent most of that time avoiding him. He went on and on about how much he cared. And then he said it. He announced to the entire room that I had agreed to let him adopt me. He said we were going to make it official, and that soon I'd legally be his daughter. He couldn't be happier, he claimed. Everyone clapped. Tobias's kids looked confused but smiled. My aunt hugged my mom. People came up to congratulate me. I stood there, frozen. I didn't move. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then I spoke, loud enough for everyone to hear. I never agreed to anything, I said. Tobias came into my room earlier and threatened me. He told me I had to agree to the adoption or move out. He was lying about the house being in his name. My mom is the one paying rent and has been for months, while Tobias's business continues to fail. The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Tobias's face turned scarlet. My mom looked like she wanted to disappear into the floorboards. Tobias started to argue, claiming I was being dramatic, twisting his words. I didn't let him finish. I'm leaving, I declared. I walked to my room, grabbed my bag, and marched out the front door. My mom followed me onto the porch, trying to stop me. You're ruining everything, she hissed. You're embarrassing Tobias in front of his children and my family. You should have thought about that before ambushing me, I shot back. I called my dad. He answered right away. Come get me, I pleaded. He said he'd be there in 20 minutes. I waited at the end of the driveway. My mom stayed on the porch, not coming closer. Tobias stayed inside. When my dad pulled up, I jumped in the car. I didn't look back. Update 1. I didn't talk to my mom for 2 weeks. She texted, she called, I ignored everything. My dad was amazing. He didn't push me to respond, just made sure I had everything I needed. He told me to take my time. Finally, one Wednesday evening, my mom showed up at my dad's house. They talked on the porch for a bit. Then Dad came to get me. "Your mom wants to talk," he said. "It's up to you if you're ready." I wasn't, but I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. I went outside. My mom apologized. She said she should have told me about the adoption plan. She claimed Tobias convinced her it would be a nice surprise, and she went along with it. She swore she didn't know he was going to threaten me. She was sorry for calling me a brat and for not listening. I accepted her apology, but I made my stance clear. I wasn't going back to her house if Tobias was there. I was done being caught in his manipulative fantasies. If she wanted a relationship with me, it had to be separate from him. "That's not realistic," she said. "Tobias lives with me, we're a unit. You need to find a way to get along with him." That's when I asked her to tell me the truth about something else. I asked her why my dad's side of the family, and her side barely spoke. Why her brother and sister hated my dad so much. I'd been thinking about that guest list at the party. It wasn't random. She'd invited the people who already had an axe to grind with my father. My mom hesitated. "It's complicated," she said. I told her I was 17. I deserved to know. She sighed. "The divorce," she explained, "wasn't as clean as I thought. After they separated, she wanted counseling, hoping to work things out. My dad agreed to a few sessions, and she thought it meant he was open to reconciliation. She was wrong. While they were supposedly working on their marriage, my dad had already hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. He didn't tell her. She found out when she was served papers at work. 2 weeks later, someone saw my dad on a date with another woman, the woman who is now his girlfriend of 5 years. My mom felt blindsided. She'd been holding on to hope while he'd already moved on. Her family was furious, pushing her to fight for full custody. They thought my dad was cruel for leading her on. And she did try for full custody after the divorce was finalized, but the court maintained the 50-50 arrangement. I had no idea. My dad had never mentioned any of this. I'd met his girlfriend countless times. She's always been nice, but I never thought about when they got together. I went back inside after my mom left, numb. I didn't say anything to my dad that night. I needed to process everything. The next day after school, I finally asked him. I told him what my mom had said. I asked if it was true. He didn't deny it. He said he chose to move forward instead of dragging things out. He said the marriage was over and he didn't see the point in pretending. He claimed he met his girlfriend after he'd decided to file, even if the paperwork wasn't finished. He didn't think of it as cheating because they were already separated. I asked him why he agreed to counseling if his mind was made up. He didn't have a good answer. He thought it might help them communicate about co-parenting, he said, and he didn't realize my mom thought they were trying to fix the marriage. I sat with all this new information. I started to understand why my mom's family acted the way they did, why my mom might have been drawn to someone like Tobias, someone so eager to commit. I also felt like I'd been living with only half the story my entire life. A few days later, my mom called. She asked if I'd thought about coming back for my regular custody days. I told her I needed more time. She understood, but she also told me something else. She and Tobias were having problems. The party, she said, had brought up a lot of issues. Tobias had been lying about his business. It hadn't just been slow for a few months. It had been failing for over 2 years. No steady contracts in 18 months. He was barely making enough to cover his truck payment. My mom had been paying for everything else. Rent, utilities, groceries. He'd claimed a big client was about to sign, but that client didn't exist. My mom only found out when she finally demanded to see his business accounts after I exposed his lie about the house. She felt like an idiot, she said. She'd been supporting him financially while he played house and tried to push my real dad out of the picture. She was humiliated. They were going to counseling, but she wasn't sure if it would help. His kids hadn't come over since the party, either. His ex-wife had found out what happened and decided it wasn't a good environment. I didn't feel sorry for Tobias, not one bit. But I did feel a little sorry for my mom. She'd been trying to build something that was never as solid as she thought. I told her I'd think about returning, but made no promises. She asked if we could at least have dinner once a week, just us outside the house. I agreed. We've been meeting at a diner near her work every Thursday. It's been okay. We don't talk about Tobias or my dad. We just eat and catch up. It's the most normal our relationship has felt in years. Update 2. Tobias moved out last month. My mom told me during one of our Thursday dinners. She said the counseling wasn't working. Every session turned into an argument about money or me or his kids. The counselor suggested a break, and Tobias agreed a little too quickly. He moved into an apartment across town. Mom said he took most of his stuff in one trip, like he'd been planning his exit for a while. I asked if they were getting divorced. She said she didn't know yet. She needed time to figure out what she wanted. She felt embarrassed that she'd let things get this far, that she should have seen the red flags. I didn't disagree, but I didn't pile on either. She was already beating herself up enough. With Tobias gone, my mom asked if I'd come back for my regular custody days. I said I'd try. I went back the following week. The house felt different, quieter. My mom had taken down his decorations, rearranged furniture. She said she was making the space hers again. It felt less like walking into someone else's home, and more like walking into my mom's place. That helped. Things were going okay for a few weeks. We were talking more, watching movies. She'd ask about school and actually listen, instead of half listening while Tobias talked over me. I started to remember what it was like before he moved in, when it was just the two of us. Then, my dad's girlfriend came up in conversation. We were at dinner, and Mom mentioned seeing a social media post from one of Dad's relatives, a family photo with him and his girlfriend. Mom made a comment about how long they'd been together. It wasn't mean, but it was pointed. I could tell she was still hurt. I asked her why she never told me the full story about the divorce before. I'd spent years thinking my parents just amicably grew apart. Finding out the truth from her during an argument felt like another secret I'd been kept from. My mom said she didn't want me to resent my dad, that she knew how important he was to me and didn't want to poison that relationship. She thought it was better for me to have a good relationship with both parents than to know all the messy details. I told her I appreciated that, but it also made me feel like I couldn't trust either of them, to be honest. I said I was old enough to handle the truth. She agreed. She should have told me sooner, she admitted. She also wanted me to understand that people make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes hurt the people they love. My dad wasn't a bad person, she said. He just made a choice that hurt her, and she'd been carrying that hurt for a long time. I asked her if that's why she stayed with Tobias, even when things weren't good. If she was trying to prove something. She thought about it. Maybe, she said. After the divorce, she felt like a failure. Meeting Tobias felt like a second chance, and she wanted it to work so badly that she ignored the problems until they were too big to ignore. We talked for a long time that night, longer than we had in years. My mom cried a little. I didn't. I just listened. I think that's what she needed. Someone to hear her without judgment. A few days later, my dad asked if I wanted to talk about the divorce. I guess Mom had called him. I said I didn't have much to say. He apologized for not being more upfront when I was younger, saying he thought he was protecting me, but now realized it probably just made things more confusing. I accepted his apology. I also told him I thought it was a shitty thing to do to my mom, leading her on while he was planning to leave. He didn't argue. He agreed, saying he'd handled it poorly. I asked if he ever regretted it. He regretted the way he did it, he said, but not leaving the marriage. He and Mom weren't good together at the end, and staying would have been worse for everyone, including me. I don't know if I entirely believed that, but I wasn't there for the truly bad parts. I only remembered the fighting and tension before they separated. After the divorce, things did get calmer. My dad also told me that he'd always been willing to fight for custody if my mom tried to take it away. He said he didn't file for full custody after the party incident because he wanted me to have the option to repair my relationship with my mom. He knew I was mad, but he also knew I'd regret cutting her off completely. I didn't know if he was right, but I appreciated that he'd thought about it. Update 3. My mom filed for divorce from Tobias 3 weeks ago. She told me during one of our Thursday dinners. She thought about trying to make it work, but there was nothing left to save. Tobias had been texting her, asking for money, claiming his business was picking up. She said no. He stopped texting. The divorce should be quick. They were only married for a little over 2 years. No shared property. Tobias signed the papers without a fight. Mom said he's already dating someone new, one of his employees. She didn't seem bothered. She was relieved more than anything. I asked her how his kids were doing. She didn't know. Tobias's ex-wife blocked her number after the party incident. My mom understood why. The whole situation was a mess, and those kids didn't need to be dragged through it. She seemed genuinely sad about losing touch with them. They were good kids, she said, and she tried to be a positive presence in their lives. I believed her. My mom isn't a bad person. She just made bad choices about who to tie herself to. Things have settled into a new routine. I'm back on the regular 50-50 custody schedule. It's the same arrangement, but it feels completely different now. My mom's house is just her house. No one else trying to insert themselves. My dad's house is the same. His girlfriend is around sometimes, but she's never tried to overstep, always respecting our relationship. My mom and I are in a better place than we've been in years. We're honest with each other now. She doesn't sugarcoat things and I don't hold back. It's not perfect, but it's real. That's what matters. I also have a much better understanding of my dad. He's not the perfect parent I thought he was as a kid. He made choices that hurt people, but he also shows up for me consistently. He pays attention. He doesn't try to rewrite history or pretend to be something he's not. I respect that, even if I don't agree with everything he's done. I'm turning 18 in a few months, which means I'll be able to make my own decisions about where I spend my time, free from any custody agreements. I plan to keep splitting my time between both parents, not because a court order says I have to, but because they're both my family. They're both flawed. They've both hurt each other and made mistakes, but they're also both trying. And right now, that's enough for me. I haven't seen or heard from Tobias since the party. I don't expect to. My mom said he asked about me once through a mutual friend, wondering if I was okay. She just said I was fine and left it at that. I have nothing to say to him. He tried to force himself into a role that was never his, and it blew up in his face. I don't feel bad about that at all. My mom and I had dinner last night. She told me she's been thinking about going back to school to get her nursing degree upgraded, to become a nurse practitioner. She said she has time now that she's not managing someone else's problems. She seemed genuinely excited about it. I told her she should absolutely do it. She's great at her job, and she deserves to move forward with her own life. My dad's been talking about taking me on a trip this summer before I start college. Just the two of us. He wants to visit some national parks. I said yes. It'll be good to spend time with him without the weight of everything else hanging over us. I don't have a neat conclusion to any of this. My family is still messy. My parents still have history that affects how they interact. But at least now I know the whole story. I'm not being protected from the truth or manipulated into taking sides. I can see both of them clearly and make my own judgments. And honestly, that's all I really wanted. Story 2. My boyfriend's secret life. I thought my 5-year relationship was solid, that I was building a future with the man I loved. Then, I accidentally overheard a conversation that shattered my entire world, revealing years of lies and a betrayal I never saw coming. Imagine walking into your own home, hearing your long-term boyfriend's voice, and realizing he's telling his old roommate that living with you feels like having a mom instead of a girlfriend. And that's not even the worst part. Let's go back a bit. I'm 27 and my boyfriend, James, is 29. We'd been together for 5 years, living together for 3 in my apartment. I truly believed we had something strong. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue back in 2020. I was a dental hygienist. He worked at an electronics store. We clicked over horror movies and dad jokes. He seemed different from other guys, quieter, more thoughtful. Or so I thought. Our relationship started pretty normally. We hung out, went to movies, tried new restaurants. He'd come over to my place almost every weekend because his roommate situation was a mess. His roommate, Mark, had a girlfriend who practically moved in without paying rent, and James complained about it constantly. My apartment was a peaceful escape, so it made sense he preferred being here. After about 2 years of dating, I started bringing up the idea of him moving in. My lease was up for renewal, and it just made sense. He was practically living here anyway, and it would save us both money. The first few times I mentioned it, he'd change the subject or give vague answers about timing. But I kept bringing it up because it was logical. We were spending all our free time together. His living situation was only getting worse. Eventually he agreed. I remember being so happy when he said yes. We went furniture shopping. I helped him pack up his stuff from Mark's. It felt like a huge step, like we were building something real. The first year of living together was actually good. We settled into routines easily. I'd be up early for work. He'd leave around 9. We cooked dinner, watched Netflix, went hiking or to farmers markets on weekends. It felt comfortable, stable. But over the past year and a half, things started shifting. James spent more and more time on his phone or laptop after work. Just browsing Reddit, he'd say, but he was completely absorbed. Our dinner conversations got shorter. Weekend activities became rare. I found myself having to ask him multiple times for basic household tasks. Garbage, dishes, groceries. Everything required a specific request from me. When I'd bring it up, he'd apologize, make an effort for a week or 2, then slide right back into his distant patterns. The physical closeness also changed. He stopped initiating hugs, casual touches. On the couch, he'd sit on the opposite end, not cuddle like we used to. Our intimate life became almost non-existent unless I initiated everything. I started wondering if he was still attracted to me, if something was wrong with our relationship. I tried talking to him about these concerns repeatedly. Each time, it was the same. He'd listen, apologize, promise more effort. Things would improve temporarily, then regress. I began to wonder if this was just how long-term relationships worked. But deep down, I knew it wasn't normal or healthy. Last Tuesday, I decided I needed another serious conversation. After dinner, I told him I felt a distance and that we needed to reconnect. I asked him directly, was he happy living with me? Did he see a future for us? That's when his whole demeanor changed. He got quiet, staring at his hands. Then he confessed. He never really wanted to move in with me. He felt pressured because I kept bringing it up, and he didn't know how to say no without hurting my feelings. He admitted he agreed because it seemed easier than having difficult conversations about what he actually wanted. I was completely stunned. He kept going, saying he'd been comfortable when we were just dating, and he had his own place. Living together felt too serious, too fast, but he didn't know how to express that at the time. He'd been feeling trapped for the past year, but didn't want to hurt me. He even said he'd been thinking about getting his own place again, but was afraid of my reaction. He claimed he still cared about me, but needed space. I asked him why he never told me any of this before. He just shrugged, saying he thought his feelings might change, that he might grow into wanting what I wanted. Apparently, that never happened. After that bombshell, I went to bed early and barely slept. I replayed the past 3 years, wondering what was real, what was just him going along with my wishes. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened, making coffee, asking about Netflix. The whole week felt fake. Every chore he did, every moment we sat together, I questioned its authenticity. The worst part was feeling like I'd pressured him into this life without even realizing it. I wouldn't have wanted him to move in if he wasn't genuinely interested. I was embarrassed. I felt like I didn't know James anymore, and I didn't know if our relationship had ever been real. Update 1. Your responses to my original post really helped me see things clearer, so thank you for that. After I posted 3 weeks ago, I told James the first needed him to be completely honest with me, even if the truth was difficult. I preferred a hard truth over living a lie. For about a week, things were awkward but civil. He started making more effort around the apartment. He'd suggest specific shows, even took me out for dinner one night. But I could see he was still weighing everything. He'd get this distant look, especially when we were doing couple-like things. It was like he was evaluating if he actually enjoyed it or was just going through the motions. Then, last Friday, everything changed. I came home early from work due to a cancellation. James' car was there. As I approached our apartment, I heard him talking. I thought it was a work call, but as I got closer, I realized he was talking to Mark, his old roommate. Our walls are thin, and they were talking loudly. What I heard completely shocked me. James was telling Mark he was thinking about moving back in with him. Mark's girlfriend had left, so his apartment was free again. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was how James was describing our relationship to Mark. He said living with me was like having a mom instead of a girlfriend. He complained that I was always organizing things and making plans, and he felt like he couldn't just relax in his own home. He said I asked too many questions about his day and wanted to do activities together on weekends, when he preferred to just stay in and do his own thing. Then came the real gut punch. He told Mark he had never been physically attracted to me the way he was to girls he dated before me. He said our intimate life felt like an obligation, and he'd been avoiding it as much as possible. And then he dropped the final bomb. He'd been talking to his co-worker, Emma, for the past few months, and she'd been flirting with him. He told Mark he was curious about what it would be like to date someone else, but felt stuck because we lived together and breaking up would be complicated. I stood outside that door for probably 10 minutes, listening to him dismantle our entire relationship, reducing it to a burden he'd been carrying. When he finally hung up, I waited a few more minutes before opening the door, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. That night, I didn't bring up what I'd overheard. I wanted to see how he'd act, now that I knew his true feelings. He was actually more affectionate than usual, probably riddled with guilt from his conversation with Mark. He suggested pizza from our favorite place, asked me to pick the movie. The whole evening felt like a performance. Every smile, every conversation felt disingenuous. He was playing the part of a good boyfriend while secretly plotting his escape and talking to other women. I spent the weekend pretending everything was normal, internally reeling. By Sunday night, I couldn't take it anymore. I know about your conversation with Mark, I told him. His face went completely white. He tried to deny it, but I repeated exactly what I'd heard. Then he got defensive, saying I had no right to listen to his private conversations. I pointed out that I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, and perhaps he shouldn't have such conversations in our shared living space if he wanted privacy. He eventually admitted everything I heard was true. He'd been unhappy for a long time, but didn't know how to end things without hurting me. He claimed he still cared about me as a person, but we weren't compatible as romantic partners. I asked him about Emma. He said they'd just been friendly, but he was interested in exploring that connection. He insisted nothing physical had happened, but he admitted he'd been emotionally checking out while maintaining the appearance of commitment. The conversation lasted until almost midnight. He kept apologizing, saying he should have been honest sooner. He offered to sleep on the couch and start looking for a new place immediately. He said he'd understand if I never wanted to see him again. I told him he was right about needing to move out, but I needed time to process before handling the logistics. I felt betrayed, not just by his dishonesty, but by the fact that he'd let me believe we were building a future while he was planning his escape. Since then, he's been staying at Mark's most nights. He comes by for clothes and mail, but we haven't had any meaningful conversations. He texts occasionally about practical things, but that's it. I found out from a mutual friend that he and Emma have been seen together. They're not officially dating yet, but they've been hanging out. It stunned to know he moved on so quickly, but it also confirmed his interest in our relationship had been dead long before I realized. I'm planning to ask him to come get the rest of his stuff this weekend. I think we both know this relationship is over, but we haven't formally acknowledged it yet. Part of me wants closure, but another part just thinks I already know everything I need to know. The hardest part is realizing that almost everything about our relationship for the past year was fake. He was pretending to be invested while secretly resenting me and looking for alternatives. I keep wondering what else he lied about, what else he just went along with to avoid conflict. Update 2. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to wait until things truly settled down before writing again. A lot has happened since James started staying at Mark's place. 2 weeks after my last post, James came by to get more of his belongings. I expected it to be awkward, but straightforward. Instead, he surprised me by asking if we could talk. He said he'd been thinking about our conversation and wanted to explain his side better. He sat at my kitchen table and admitted he'd handled everything poorly. He never meant to deceive me, he claimed, and genuinely thought his feelings might change. He'd convinced himself that his doubts were normal. Then he said something that genuinely caught me off guard. He told me his mother had been asking him when he was going to propose. She'd been dropping hints for months about how we were the perfect age to get engaged, that I was good wife material. He said this pressure from his family made him feel even more trapped, because they all assumed we were heading for marriage. He also revealed that several of our mutual friends had commented on us being such a stable couple, how lucky we were. All these outside opinions, he said, made it harder for him to admit he wasn't happy, because everyone else thought we were perfect. I asked him why he never talked to me about feeling pressured. He said he didn't want to hurt my feelings by suggesting that what others saw as relationship goals actually felt suffocating to him. He was afraid if he admitted his doubts, I'd think he was rejecting me personally, rather than just questioning the dynamic of the relationship. During this conversation, he also told me more about Emma. They'd started talking during breaks at work about 6 months ago. At first, it was casual, but he found himself looking forward to those interactions more than coming home to me. He claimed nothing physical happened between them while we were together, but he admitted he'd developed feelings for her. He said Emma represented everything he felt was missing from our relationship. She was spontaneous, didn't ask him to make plans, and seemed content to just enjoy their time without expectations about the future. He said being around her reminded him of how relationships felt in the beginning, before they became serious and complicated. I listened to everything without interrupting. When he finished, I told him I appreciated his honesty, but it didn't change anything. I understood he felt pressured, but that didn't excuse him from lying to me for years about his true feelings. I pointed out that I couldn't make informed decisions if he wasn't giving me accurate information about where he stood. He then asked if there was any chance we could work things out. He said he missed certain aspects of our relationship and wondered if we could try being together without the pressure of living together or planning a future. Basically, he wanted to go back to casual dating. I told him no, absolutely not. I explained that I wasn't interested in a relationship with someone who needed to sneak around and explore other options before deciding if I was worth committing to. I deserved to be with someone who chose me enthusiastically, not someone who settled for me because other options didn't work out. That conversation was 3 weeks ago, and it was the last real discussion we had. He finished moving his stuff out the following weekend. I even helped him load boxes into Mark's truck. We were polite but distant. Since then, I found out from our mutual friend, Lisa, that James and Emma are officially dating. Lisa said they've been posting pictures together, and Emma even met James' family last weekend. It stung learning he introduced someone new to his parents just weeks after ending a 5-year relationship with me. But it also confirmed I made the right decision. The most surprising development happened 2 weeks ago. James' mother called me. I almost didn't answer. She said James had told the family about our breakup, but his explanation didn't make sense to her. She wanted to hear my side. I gave her a brief version, without going into too much detail about James's behavior. I focused on our different expectations and incompatibility. His mother surprised me by saying she had suspected James wasn't as happy as he pretended to be. She said he always seemed tense when they asked about us, and his answers about our future were always vague. She apologized for any pressure she might have put on him about proposing and said she hoped I would find someone who appreciated me properly. That phone call was actually really healing. It helped me realize that other people had noticed James' ambivalence, even when I missed it. It made me feel less like I had imagined problems that didn't exist. I've been focusing on getting back to activities I enjoyed before James and I lived together. I started a pottery class, joined a hiking group. It's been nice to remember what I like to do when I'm not trying to accommodate someone else's preferences. My apartment feels different now, too. I rearranged furniture, redecorated the bedroom. I got rid of things that reminded me of James and replaced them with items that reflect my taste. It's quieter, but it also feels more authentically mine. I still think about the relationship sometimes, but mostly I feel relieved. That constant undercurrent of tension and uncertainty is gone. I don't have to wonder if James really wants to do things with me, or if he's just going along with my suggestions. Update 3. I wanted to give one final update, as so many of you have followed this journey. It's been 4 months since James moved out, and I finally feel like I can close this chapter of my life. The biggest news? James and Emma broke up about 6 weeks ago. I found out through Lisa, who heard it from Mark. Apparently, their relationship moved incredibly fast initially, but then James started having the exact same issues with Emma that he had with me. He began pulling away when she wanted to spend more time together and make plans for the future. According to Lisa, Emma got frustrated with James's hot and cold behavior and ended things. She told him she wasn't interested in dating someone who couldn't decide what he wanted from a relationship. It sounds like James has a clear pattern. He's excited about new relationships until they require actual commitment or effort. After Emma broke up with him, James apparently tried to reach out to me. He sent a few texts over the course of a week, asking if we could meet for coffee. I saw him from my window and decided not to buzz him up. After about 20 minutes of him waiting in the lobby, he finally left. He sent me one more text that night, saying he missed me and had made a mistake. I blocked his number after that. Lisa told me that James has been telling people he regrets how things ended between us. He apparently said he realized too late that what we had was actually good, and that his issues were about his own commitment problems, not problems with me specifically. But honestly, I'm not interested in being someone's backup plan or their lesson in appreciating what they had. The most satisfying part of this whole experience happened 2 months ago. I was at a coffee shop near my work when James' mother walked and sat down. She told me James had been struggling since Emma broke up with him, and that he had finally admitted to his family that he made a huge mistake with me. Then she said something that really surprised me. She told me that after talking to me on the phone months earlier, she had started paying more attention to how James treated the people in his life. She said she noticed he had a pattern of taking advantage of people's kindness without reciprocating, and that she was working on addressing this with him. She apologized again for any role she might have played in pressuring James about our relationship. She said she hoped I was doing well, and that I seemed much happier and more confident than the last time she'd seen me with James. That observation meant so much to me because it confirmed that I had indeed been diminishing myself to accommodate his indifference. In terms of my own life, things have been going really well. That pottery class led to me joining an art studio where I rent space to work on larger projects. I've made several friends through the hiking group, and we've even started planning some weekend camping trips for the spring. Last month, I also got promoted at the dental office. My boss offered me a position as office manager, which comes with better pay and more responsibility. I probably wouldn't have pursued career advancement so aggressively if I had still been focused on accommodating James's schedule and preferences. I've been on a few dates with different people, but I'm not in a rush to jump into another serious relationship. I want to make sure I don't fall into the same patterns of over-accommodating or ignoring red flags because X. The biggest thing I learned from this experience is that someone can care about you as a person while still being completely wrong for you as a partner. James probably did care about me in his own way, but he was never genuinely excited about building a life together. He was content to let me do the emotional labor of maintaining our relationship while he passively went along with whatever I suggested. I also learned that I need to pay attention to people's actions over their words. James said he wanted to work on our problems, but his behavior showed he was already mentally checked out. When someone shows you who they are consistently over time, it's important to believe them rather than hoping they'll change. For anyone going through something similar, my advice is to trust your instincts when something feels off in your relationship. I spent months making excuses for James's behavior, trying to fix problems that were really just symptoms of his lack of genuine investment. I wish I had been more honest with myself about what I was seeing instead of trying to convince myself that everything was fine. I'm incredibly grateful for everyone who commented on my posts and shared their own experiences. Reading about other people's similar situations helped me feel less alone and gave me confidence in my decision to end things with James. It's been a difficult few months, but I'm in a much better place now than I was when I was trying to force a relationship with someone who didn't really want to be in it.